Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers.
All right, welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast. Joining you today is Craig and Vince, breaking down the Brewers trade deadline deals. All right, Vince, let's jump right into it. First of all, how's it going?
It's going great, Craig. How are you? It's always great to talk some baseball. It's been a little hectic on my end, so I'm glad that we're able to tape here today. Good to be back.
Absolutely. So, well, we went over on a couple podcasts ago. The Brewers kind of struck early in July by acquiring Aaron Savali from the Rays, one of the first trades of the entire trading season here in the major leagues. And he's been a member of our rotation since that. Since then, the Brewers also traded for right-handed reliever Nick Mears, and then the big trade the day before the deadline, the Brewers traded for Red starting pitcher, right-handed pitcher Frankie Montas, and they gave away outfielder Joey Wiemer and also right-handed pitcher Jake Junis in the deal. I guess what are your thoughts on that deal specifically, the Montas deal?
I was excited to get Montas. Obviously, the Brewers need pitching depth. That was a no-brainer going into the deadline. The Brewers were going to have to target some pitching just with the spate of injuries that this staff has undergone the last, 3-4 months. So I think that the writing was on the wall that we were not only going to get a guy like Savali, but we were still going to be targeting another starting pitcher. So not surprised at all. I guess, my biggest surprise with the deal is that we gave up a pitcher. Jacob Junis did not pitch bad for Milwaukee during his time when he was healthy. Granted, he had gone through a lot of injuries, so I was a little surprised that we had traded a pitcher with a sub-3 ERA in the deal. I don't think that Junis, at the end of the day, is as talented or has the potential ceiling as Montas does. But that being said, I was a little surprised that we did trade an arm as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think with his injury, and my take on trading him along, the pitcher along with his, that they just goes kind of offset salaries a little bit, and also to even open up a man on a spot on the 26-man roster as well. So I think he was kind of more of a numbers casualty, and I think they definitely felt they upgraded, especially for the starting rotation, whereas Jacob has been more of like a swingman, so to speak, for the Brewers, and I wish him well with Cincinnati. Obviously, the big loss here for the Brewers is Joey Wiemer, who I think the Brewers were hoping to be one of their big young players to come up. He is from the Cincinnati area, so I wish him well with the Reds as well. He hasn't shown that he can hit major league pitching as of yet, and he's struggled a little bit in the minor leagues even this year. But he has turned around recently. In my opinion, he still has potential to be a MLB regular. He probably will never hit for average, but if you're looking for like a 240, 250 hitter, someone will get 20 to 30 home runs and even steal 20 bases and playing pretty decent defense in the outfield. Wiemer could be a really solid get for the Reds, especially in that ballpark where it's a hitter's haven, so to speak. So what were you a little bit, I think he was obviously somewhere where we had a surplus in the outfield, really no spot for him. But with Yelch's injury, were you a little bit surprised Wiemer was dealt in this type of deal?
A little bit, not totally. I think that, you obviously have to assess where you have the most to offer as a team as well, if you're on the trading end of that. So I think that, the Brewers are blessed with a spate of outfielders. We've got a ton of guys in the outfield. And I think that, honestly, it was the emergence of Blake Perkins this year that probably allowed us to trade Joey Wiemer. They had been all billed very highly last year with the freshman series, and we, really got hyped about Wiemer after he was called up, I think, in literally game 2 of the 2023 season. So, yeah, to a point, I think that, you're talking about a guy who's only got, 150 or so games under his belt at the major league level. So it's a little surprising when you give up on a guy that you've hyped that has only gotten that much playing time. He's still only 25 years old. But, that being said, of all the Brewers outfielders at AAA or above, I think that he was probably the most expendable because his age did allow him to have some value. He's not making a ton of money yet. So he's got not a ton of service time, so he's still got years in the organization now for Cincinnati. So I think he provides some value for a team like the Reds. So that's probably what allowed the Brewers to get this deal done for Montas. And I will say this: I don't think that the Brewers, if we are going to go anywhere in the postseason this year, I don't think we could go anywhere without having, buttressed our pitching staff a little bit more. So I think this deal is one that, you might look back in a couple of years and say that it hurts to lose Weimer, but at the time, you're dealing from a surplus, and I think it had to get done if you're going to go anywhere this season.
Well, I know here on the Burke Review, we've been looking for the Brewers to do like a win now deadline move for a number of years now, and we just kind of like tinker with the roster a little bit, upgrade here or there, and like very vanilla, like Mark Canna type.
Yeah.
And this one, I like this trade. I'll start by saying that because of the fact that it does show me that they're going for it for this year. Montas is only under contract for this year. I think there's a mutual option, but that's usually just a formality. And so really we have him just for this year. So it was a kind of all in for this season necessary move. And for a first place team, I think that's a real good move, especially, we're adding where you really needed to. Now, the Brewer fan community really seems down on this move. And I think they're basing it off of obviously his 2024 numbers are not great, but you have to keep in mind he's pitching in Cincinnati, which outside of Colorado is probably the worst place to pitch in the major leagues. It's really a bandbox there and a hitter's haven. So you've got to keep that in mind. But overall, like the thing with Montas is he's got big stuff, great arm, but he's really been inconsistent. I think that's frustrating for an acquisition because the Brewers really need some consistency now. He did have a great season a number of years ago and coming up through the A's system. The A's did trade him to the Yankees. Once he got traded to the Yankees, he did not perform very well. The Reds traded for him just over a year ago, and he has not done great for them either. And I think the Reds fans were happy to be almost rid of him, especially in a non-contending mode here. I think they're pretty happy with the return on that if you're a Reds fan. But in spite of what a lot of people are saying, well, is he even an upgrade over Jacob Junis? And I would say absolutely. I mean, this guy, in my opinion, has first of all, he's our second best starting pitcher right out of the gates. I mean, whether or not he can, reach his ceiling right away and the Brewers can, work their magic on him is another thing, but everyone's kind of assuming as such. But really, if you're going into playoff series, he'd probably be marked up right behind Freddie Peralta as our number 2 starter over Savali. So really, by having this acquisition, you're setting up 3 veteran pitchers in Peralta, Montas, and Savali is probably going into a playoff series as your top 3 starters. Now, no offense to Colin Ray or Tobias Myers, who are having great seasons on their own accord, but they don't have the experience some of these guys do, and even the ceiling and big game potential. With that being said, I'm not going to assume that that's how they're going to line up or anything like that, but really, you're solidifying your starting rotation by making this move. And now Montas did have a couple of years back, did have a 80-game suspension for substance abuse through MLB. So you don't really like to see that on his docket, so to speak, on his resume. But I think where he's beyond that, and hopefully the other thing that I really want to point out about he's a huge clubhouse guy. I know a lot of the guys in the Reds were sad to lose him, and as a player that we're getting, I kind of like to see that. I know Hunter Green mentioned something that he was really saddened by the fact that he was traded. And supposedly just an overall great clubhouse guy. And so on a team where I feel one of our strengths led by Pat Murphy this year and kind of like young guys type college baseball mentality, adding, you don't want to add someone that doesn't, like a Josh Donaldson or someone like that, or, someone that, isn't necessarily good for clubhouse chemistry, so to speak. So I think adding Montas is a good thing. But really on the field, I think we're going to see results from Montas, and as long as he stays healthy down the stretch here, I really feel that he'll do well as a Brewer.
Yeah, he's got the pedigree to pitch well for the Brewers. I'm a fan of this trade overall. Again, I think that you do have to give up something and potential talent to get something, and I think that the Brewers are in a position right now, being in first place, leading the division all season virtually, that they have to do something like this. One thought on the deadline that has been expressed online by a number of our fans with us on social media has been, asking if we're upset that the Brewers didn't do more. Are you surprised that we didn't go get a bat? Are you upset at the front office for not being a little bit more aggressive and looking at other potential trades? Craig?
Well, yeah, the number one thing with that, I guess, is with Yelich's injury. I guess that's another thing that's probably happened since the last time we taped the podcast is that Christian Yelich, our all-star outfielder and former MVP, is out right now with a back injury. He's talking at some point in the offseason probably have to have back surgery, but he should be good to go by next year. But also, I think he's going to try to play through it whenever he can once he can get back on the field this season. So that's huge, I think, because without him, that's a huge loss. But I don't think that's a guarantee. So if I thought the Brewers were going to at least explore a little bit more and possibly add a left-handed, at least bench bat, because without losing Yelich's left-handed bat, we're really down on left-handed bats. And so, but I kind of scoured the market of basically selling teams, and there really wasn't very many veteran left-handed bats out there to acquire. I mean, Jesse, you don't want to bring back Jesse Winker. I don't think any Brewer.
No. I'd much rather stand pat than bring back Jesse Winker. No, thank you.
I thought maybe we like finally land Joey Gallo, but of course that didn't happen. So, but overall,
no. How many years in a row?
Yeah, exactly. So no, the disappointment continues. No, the overall, no, yeah, I was a little bit surprised that we didn't tinker and make one more veteran bat move, I guess, so to speak. But
yeah.
But I think adding the bullpen Mirza is a nice addition, especially with Trevor McGill going on the IL now with some back issue. He's been great for us, obviously closing out most of the first half here for a first place team. He's been pretty awesome. So hopefully he returns at 100%. But I should point out also Devin Williams finally made a season debut this week, and he's a huge addition. So if you want to look at it that way, adding an all-star level closer to your dock here at the trade deadline is nice too. But I mean, obviously losing McGill, it for a little bit of here weakens our bullpen overall. But yeah,
the Devin addition is awesome on its own. It's just it really stinks when it comes at the expense of McGill. I really wanted that back end of the bullpen to have that 1-2 punch in the 8th and 9th innings with McGill and Williams going back to back to shut down games. That would really, I think, do wonders for our rotation to have that lockdown. 8th and 9th inning at least, and maybe a 7th inning as well if you can count on some of the other relievers to step up here down the stretch. But we'll just have to continue to grin and bear it as a team with these injuries this year. It's just been really rough. I saw one stat online that our interns put together for us, Craig. It said that the Brewers have now the most injuries of any pitching staff in all of baseball this season, and I believe that it might be last year too. I've got to double check the numbers, but for sure this season the Brewers have more injuries to the pitching staff than any other team in baseball.
That's unfortunate. And there's been a ton of injuries this year in baseball, especially on the arm side. So that's pretty unfortunate. And for us to have that and still be at first base must really speak for how well our offense has done in the first half. And I think that key cog in the offense has been Christian Yelich. So I think we've already seen in the week or two that he's been missing. Our offense has sputtered a little bit without him out of it. Sometimes when you miss a key guy like that, it affects the whole rest of the lineup, unfortunately, up and down in baseball. So that's an unfortunate thing, and really hope Christian can get back to full health as quickly as possible, because I think without him, it's hard for any Brewer fan to envision the Brewers doing much or going very far in the playoffs this year, assuming that we make it there. We are currently sitting, I think, between 5 and 6 games out in the division lead, which is a pretty nice cushion with 2 months to play. But with that being said, I think we still, can't afford any real downturns in play. So that right. I think that the Brewers did a pretty nice job overall solidifying the team here at the trade deadline. I would have liked a little more, absolutely. Should also mention one of our other key breakouts this year, left-handed reliever Brian Hudson also went on the IL, but it coincided with Jared Koenig coming off the IL, so we got a lefty back to the bullpen, lost one. So I really feel like if we can get to full strength before the end of September, our bullpen is going to be really pretty phenomenal, and our rotation will be pretty solid. Overall, again, DL Hall at some point will be ready to come back off of a rehab assignment. I don't know if he'll get slotted in the rotation or possibly he'll get, be using the bullpen here for at least this year. I think the Brewers definitely have signaled that they view him as a long-term starting pitcher, and that's kind of his desire. So I think that they'll stick with that as long as they can. But yeah, that overall, The team, the
Yeah,
offense is really going to have to step up. One guy that's been phenomenally hot over the last month has been Jackson Churio, and you can really see
yep.
how this guy's, all the hype's been about. Obviously, he had overwhelming numbers the first couple months this season. There's even talk amongst Brewer fans that maybe should he be sent down, and he's
No.
here to stay, I think. And obviously, you can see why he's got immense talent. And really, he's with Yelich going down, he's really stepped up, and that's a needed thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, a couple of months ago, he was, I think, hovering around the 220 batting average mark at that point. He's managed to pull his batting average up to 262 already on the season, which is pretty incredible at this point in the season to be able to pull yourself up by 40 plus points. With basically a 6-week hot stretch. He's also double-digit home runs with 12, 44 RBIs on the season, 12 stolen bases. So he's certainly stepping up, and he's still just 20 years old. So this hot play in the second half is just building experience at this point. But yeah, his bat is now a key component of this lineup. And I think we should also mention that Garrett Mitchell coming off the disabled list is probably a very good thing for this organization. I think it may have happened right around the last time that we taped, but since then he's played in 21 games with the Brewers. He's hitting 276 for his batting average, 364 OBP though. I know that some fans have kind of a short patience with Mitchell, but I tend to like him a lot. I put some trust in him. I think that the injuries have been, freakish and not necessarily related to anything that he could do differently. So I am excited to see what Mitchell can do down the stretch here for Milwaukee as well. And hopefully he avoids, these weird injuries in the future.
And Willie Adames is also someone that's right in the middle of our lineup and has been a key contributor, but not only in the clubhouse, but definitely with his bat over the course of his tenure since being traded from the Rays a couple of seasons ago. But overall, he's been pretty inconsistent, not only last year, but even this year. What are your thoughts on him and whether or not he can step up here as we go down the stretch for a playoff chase?
Well, good players tend to do it down the stretch, and I think Willie is a good player. I think that among shortstops in the National League, he's definitely in the top tier. Despite the fact that I think he's got a 248 batting average at this point, which isn't terribly good. But I do think that Willie has come up clutch at other times during his tenure with the Brewers, and I'm glad that we kept him. I think that it would have been a huge hole to fill, especially mid-season, to lose a guy like Willie Adames. My hope is still that the Brewers even offer him something this offseason, and he either accepts it or we get at least some compensation for him if he does choose to leave. But I'm really glad that we didn't trade him midseason. I think that would have been very deflating. I understand that there could have been some baseball reasons to do so and that the haul could have been fairly decent. I understand that there is value in that. I just didn't think that this was the season to do that with, especially with such a young team. Of which he's clearly one of the leaders of in the clubhouse. So I do think that it's good that the Brewers kept him. And on a Brewers history note, I will also say that Willie Adames, seems like yesterday we were on our spring break trip to Tampa, Florida, Craig, to see a new stadium at Tropicana Field in 2021. But that was the week that the Brewers acquired Willie Adames. And this week in Brewers history notes, Willie actually amassed enough plate appearances as a Brewer. He now officially will be qualified for the Brewers Walk of Fame someday. I'm sorry, the Wall of Honor someday. So he will have his plaque enshrined outside the third base gate at Miller Park down the road after he retires, because he is now qualified and met the minimum threshold for plate appearances as a Brewer.
Okay, so anyone who passes the plate appearances are honorable or are eligible for the Wall of Honor. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's 2,000 plate appearances, and he is now over that mark. So, yeah, that's one of the benchmarks. There's other benchmarks that are used, but Devin Williams is another current Brewer that's already on that wall of honor just because he won a Rookie of the Year award. So if you win one of the major awards as a Brewer, you're automatically on. But, I believe that Christian Yelich, Devin Williams, and Willie Adames are the three current Brewers that will, at some point down the road, be enshrined into the Wall of Honor.
Oh, that's interesting information. Absolutely. So one other thing we should do a quick assessment now of our competition here and what they did at the trade deadline. The NL Central, as it stands now, the Cubs and the Reds are obvious sellers, and so they're at the bottom.
But they weren't though, Craig. I mean, both teams. I mean, the Reds did, but the Cubs actually were acquiring guys. It surprised me quite a bit, actually. The Cubs deadline approach. You saw Chicago and St. Louis both, I would say, be fairly aggressive at the trade deadline this year.
Yeah, well, the Cubs acquisition, I think, were more on an eye for the future because they were controllable beyond this year. When you're talking about Isaac Paredes, they acquired, but they also had to give up Christopher Morel to get him, who's also has plenty of team control left. So, in my opinion, that was almost like a lateral move. I think Paredes is a better player, but overall, that was an interesting trade. And then they also acquired, I think, from the Blue Jays, Nate Pearson, who fell out of favor with the Blue Jays. He had a nice high ceiling and a future starting pitching prospect, but it really struggled with command and injuries. And so I think that was a change of scenery thing. And the Cubs probably were smart to swoop in and see if they can kind of fix him or give him a nice change of scenery. But he's controllable beyond this year. I don't think it'll help him much this year. They are over 10 games out of division lead, and I really feel that they're both those teams are kind of out of the race for this year in spite of what they did. The Cardinals obviously are not, and the Pirates also are right neck and neck with the Cardinals in second place in the NL Central, hovering, like I said, between 5 and 6 games out as we tape this. And
Yeah.
so again, I thought that the Pirates were fairly aggressive. They acquired some offensive players, but they really didn't add to their pitching much. And the St. Louis Cardinals did, of course, get one of the players that we were rumored to be interested in, Eric Fetty. I'm not a big fan of Eric Fetty. I think Frankie Montas is better. What is your opinion on that?
I tend to agree. I did want Fetty, but that's not because I think that he's amazing. It's just because I think that the Brewers need depth and arms. So he was serviceable. He's obviously pitched much better this year than he has in his past. That he does not have the track record of Montas. I'm not going to lie and say that I wasn't at all interested in the Brewers getting him, but I think that the price was a bit high from Chicago, and I do think that he's probably a bit overrated. It was a bit of a thin market for starting pitchers, I think, because of all the injuries league wide on the market itself. So I mean, he was a guy that I was interested in, but he was not in my top three guys probably to target either. So I'm not upset that we didn't get him. I wish that it wasn't the Cardinals that picked him up. I don't think he's bad. I don't think that he's necessarily rated appropriately this season.
Yeah. And outside of the NL Central, obviously some of other teams that we might play once we get the playoffs, assuming we'll get there and be on the first round, would be the other two best teams in the NL are pretty hands down the Philadelphia Phillies and Los Angeles Dodgers. Everyone assumed the Dodgers were going to go out and trade for Garrett Crochet and possibly even Robert of the White Sox. Neither of those players changed hands actually. So with that being said, the Dodgers did add Michael Kopech to be their closer from the White Sox, and they also picked up pretty bargain priced Jack Flaherty rental from the Tigers. In my opinion, they could have done more damage at the trade deadline than they did. They did obviously improve their team probably more than the Brewers did, but overall, I still think that they're a little bit weakened this year. And the Philadelphia Phillies focus on their bullpen for the most part. But yeah, they're a pretty solid team up and down as the Brewers have seen and playing them head to head. But yeah, those, in my opinion, those are the biggest competitions in the way of making it the World Series for the Brewers. This
Did you talk about the Phillies?
The Phillies and the Dodgers. Obviously, the Braves are
Yeah.
a solid team as we saw seeing this week too. And they added Jorge Soler back. They have a tendency to get players back that used to be Braves. In fact, I think they added Eddie Rosario back to the team too. So I don't know.
Yeah, Rosario was playing as well. I think that they are getting rid of him this week. But yeah, that's that is kind of funny. It's like a remake of the 2021 Brave squad that won the World Series.
Yeah, they're like, well, might as well get the gang back there. They also seem to bring back Adam Duvall every year, so that's interesting. But
yeah, I'm hoping that the Brewers re-sign Paul Molitor and Gorman Thomas one of these years too.
that would be nice.
Yeah.
But no, overall, people ask, well, are you disappointed with the deadline? I'd say they did pretty much what I expected them to do and possibly even exceeded my expectations by the quality of arm that they brought in Montas. I was expecting it to be more of like a Eric Fetty or worse type. I don't know. I think that I'm pretty happy with Montas and really hope that he solidifies any potential playoff rotation. And again, making the playoffs should not be assumption at this point. We do still have 2 months of baseball to go, and the Brewers really have to step it up. But I just have confidence in this team. If you notice, as a Brewer fan, the Brewers have not gone on very long losing streaks. In fact, I don't have the numbers in front of me. We'll have to get Scott's interns on this. Yeah. But basically, yeah, I don't remember too many any losing streaks over like 3 games the entire season. So
no, I think 3 games is the high point. Craig.
Yeah.
I believe that that's correct. And
So I think that really
will
speaks to the job that Pat Murphy has done with this squad, and the they take it one day at a time mentality, I think, has really been paying off for this squad. And again, they're an exciting team to root for because, in my opinion, they've been overachievers the whole year, and they still have underdog status. So I mean, I really am excited to see what this team can do. Hopefully here in the second half of the season, and hopefully on into October. So.
Yeah, and we should make one note that as we tape this, it is Friday, August 2nd, and the Brewers are heading to Washington, D.C. For a 3-game set this weekend. And I think the Montas is making his big league or it's not his big league, his Brewers debut tonight. Yeah, and he'll be pitching in his first Brewers game this evening against Washington.
Awesome. So we'll wish him the best.
Yeah,
and his
exciting. So hopefully he steps it up and really can anchor that rotation down the stretch. And if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be a guy who is a veteran who's done some of the yeoman's work in a rotation before. A guy like Montas could eat a lot of innings. I'm excited to see what he can do. So hopefully he gets off to a good start here with Milwaukee tonight.
Absolutely. And if the Brewers want to inject any type of offense, they might have to do it from within. Maybe Tyler Black would be someone they could call from the minor leagues to help out a little bit down the stretch. He has a left-handed bat. So maybe that's one of the reasons they didn't acquire him. I almost expected if the Brewers were going to make another significant move that maybe Tyler Black would have been a major piece in a type of movement, but that did not happen. So maybe we'll use him internally. You just never know. But again, I think that the signaling here is the Brewers are sticking with their young core forward, and I think that's
offensive. Yeah,
I think it's a smart move. Chemistry. So
one other quick note that we actually broke on social media, Craig. I'm sure that you're aware of it from the interns, but Jacob Mizorowski got promoted from AA to AAA Nashville, and we actually broke that news on Twitter. We got there before John Heyman. We got there before our colleagues Curtis Hogg and Adam McKelvey. So I just wanted to point that out. That good job to our interns who did break that news on social media on Twitter this week. So I think that was exciting, and I think it also indicates that the Brewers are absolutely looking at Mizorowski to potentially be a left-handed bullpen arm for this team, potentially at this season going down the stretch.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, Mizorowski. My guess is the Brewers are going to bring him along slowly and possibly wait to debut until next year and see how he does here at AAA. But if we get, we never know what injury pops up. It's nice to have that. Power arm at AAA, a phone call away if necessary. So again, kudos for breaking that story to Scott's interns, Star and Jasmine. I appreciate that. And also appreciate the inside scoop from our anonymous source. Again, we won't say.
Oh, Tom Carter. Yeah, Tom Carter is the one that found out that information. So yeah, appreciate Tom Carter, our anonymous source for sure.
Again, you can't see this through the audio, but I am face palming a little bit because our anonymous source did not want us to keep saying his name, but that's all right. I think it's kind of already out there. So anyway,
Craig, really quick. I know that we had a draft episode a couple of weeks ago, and I know that the deadline for signing our draftees has just passed. Do you want to quickly recap the signings that the Brewers were able to make from our class of draftees this year?
Let me get that. If we could have Jasmine give me that information here. I was not prepared.
I thought you were on it. Sorry, from our pre-production meeting. But yeah, if nothing else, I think that the Brewers' second round pick did not sign with the team, but the Brewers were able to get most of the other top 10 here. In the meantime, Craig, what did you think about Ryan Braun's being enshrined in the team's Walk of Honor? That was a pretty big event for the Brewers, celebrating obviously a key figure in team history that also took place since our last taping. Did you have any thoughts about Braun and the ceremony that took place at Miller Park a couple days ago? It was really fun for me, just watching from a distance, to see guys like Mike Cameron back at the ballpark in a Brewers uniform. Even Mike Moustakas they brought back, Corey Hart, Bill Hall, J.J. Hardy were all part of the ceremony and the celebration. It was really cool and a little bit nostalgic, and makes me think, wow, we're getting old to see these guys from that awesome 2008 wild card Brewers team that excited us so much as fans and people. We were just out of the ticket office at that point, and really exciting to see these guys back on the field at Miller Park, and obviously a huge honor for Ryan Braun. He's one step away from having his uniform number retired, which many are speculating might be the next honor that the organization bestows upon him. But what were your thoughts of that as well as you're getting that information on?
Well, in spite of being a little bit of a controversial figure as time as Milwaukee Brewer, Ryan Braun is hands down one of the best players in franchise history. So obviously, I think he deserves that award. And the fact that he spent his entire career as a Brewer also, I think, holds some great weight. But overall, obviously, Rookie of the Year, MVP of the league. I mean, there's not too many people that have both those major awards in their docket, especially not Milwaukee Brewers. So yeah, I mean, overall, he was a phenomenal player, obviously at his peak. I expected him to have a little bit longer of a career, maybe, but I mean, overall, his time here, he was phenomenal. Anytime he came up to bat, you knew that the Brewers had a chance to do something special. And of course, he was part of one of the biggest moments in Brewers history and Brew Review history for sure, with his 2-run home run to give the Brewers the lead against the Cubs there at the last day of the 2008 season. So that's a special memory. CC was on the mound. Yeah, so that was a special one. And hearing Euchre's call, that still to this day gives me chills. So kudos to Ryan Braun. Yeah. Jasmine has got all this information to me now. And actually,
I was just going to say really quick on Braun too, Craig. Part of 5 Brewers playoff teams. I don't think there's anybody in franchise history that can say that besides Ryan Braun.
There we go. No, I don't think so. Interesting. So kudos to Ryan Braun. All right, so yeah, it was actually right-handed pitcher Chris Livonis out of high school that we did not sign in the second round. I'm actually pretty disappointed about that. And it really, in my opinion, it really put the damper on the entire draft class. I hate to say it. He was probably the highest ceiling player that we picked. I felt that we reached for our first rounder so that we could sign a better second rounders with higher ceilings, and that didn't come to fruition. We did sign our other top picks, including our first rounder and most of our other top 10 round picks we all signed, but losing Chris Livonis back to college is a huge blow, actually, I think, to the Brewers farm system. So that's unfortunate news. I didn't want to end the episode on a down note, but yeah, Livonis, in my opinion, had a very high ceiling, and that'd be like the equivalent of almost losing it on Jacob Mizrowski signing back when we did draft him. So that's not good, unfortunately. And it really leads me to believe that their whole draft strategy, including reaching for their first rounder to save some money, it blew up in their face. And hopefully that still some good comes out of this draft class, but overall that's a huge blow. So unfortunately, it is what it is. So all right.
Yeah, disappointing analysis there, Craig. I was hopeful that you could talk me off the ledge a little bit on that one. I know that you followed the draft very closely along with our minor league expert Brandon, but it was not good news to see that coming out a day or two ago when the Brewers failed to sign him.
Out of our top 4 picks, he was my favorite, but what can you do? So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, first place Milwaukee Brewers. Get on out to Miller Park. To AmFam Field when you get a chance to see this team.
Yeah.
I saw that.
And
just
give us the follow.
I'm sorry. What's that?
And give us the follow on Twitter, Brew Crew Review, or you can send us an email, and Scott will, I'm sure, get to those emails as soon as he's able to. Brew Crew Review Podcast with an s@gmail.com.
Well, I saw the day game at the AmFam Field the other day. Had a great pitching matchup of Freddie Peralta versus Chris Sale. Unfortunately, the Brewers did not prevail in that game. However, I did notice that the attendance was over 37,000 for a Wednesday afternoon game. I know it's summertime, but I feel that's a really strong attendance number. And obviously, the Brewers fans have something special in their hearts for the Atlanta Braves, even since they were former Milwaukee Braves. But there's that to me, it really speaks volume about how great of a baseball city Milwaukee is to have that type of attendance on a weekday day game in the summer even.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I know that you and I were not able to link up when I got up there, unfortunately, but I did get to one Brewers game while you were out of town that weekend on your RV trip. Went on the Saturday. It was an impressive crowd. Obviously that was a weekend game, but it was really fun to see. Miller Park was alive and hopping, and that was the National Series, and it was really exciting to just be back at the ballpark and to be around fans that were really excited about baseball. So no, it was that day was also full of an electric crowd, and unfortunately the Brewers lost that game in the 8th inning, got a 5 unanswered runs from Washington. But that being said, it was still really fun to be back at the ballpark and to see some very exciting crowds and some life at AmFam Field.
Yep. So obviously the Milwaukeeans love the summertime, but yeah, they love their Milwaukee Brewers and baseball in general. So kudos to the fans who are coming out and supporting, and all those who tuned in to listen to us. I appreciate it. Thanks to Scott and his interns, and to TC, and yeah, thanks Vince for your time today. And yeah, let's stay classy the last couple months of the season, and go Brewers.
You too, Craigers. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Vikram. Go Brewers.